Welcome to the STAR decision-making model. Clemson University's Rutland Institute for Ethics utilizes this collection of standards to provide opportunities for administering solutions to ethical dilemmas faced in our world today. An ethical dilemma is a situation in which there is no clear-cut right or wrong decision. Instead, these plights must be faced with the mentality to find the best solution possible. The STAR decision-making model is an excellent step-by-step process to meet these ambitions. STAR is an acronym for Stop, Test, Act, and Reflect. Each of these 4 steps contributes in a unique way to discovering, acting upon, and contemplating solutions in response to an ethical dilemma. The best way to culminate an understanding of the STAR decision-making model is to apply it to a relatable ethical dilemma. Meet Jason. Jason is a freshman engineering student living in Burns Hall with his roommate Steven. Jason and Steven get along great as roommates and as friends. However, Jason has recently started noticing that Steven is storing alcohol in their room. Jason is uncomfortable with this taking place because he's afraid of getting caught and subsequently punished by the university and law enforcement. Jason comes to the realization of the ethical dilemma that he now faces. Does he tell his RA, or should Jason directly converse with Steven? In order to find the best solution to Steven's problem, he decides to utilize the STAR decision-making model, beginning with the first step of stop. At this point, Jason must recognize the issue and its supporting details, identify stakeholders and the impact of his decision, and develop at least 3 solutions for consideration to encompass the greatest amount of perspectives. The issue in this situation is that Jason must consider the potential consequences he faces from the university and law enforcement, and how Steven may view Jason as a friend if Jason chooses to rat out Steven. The stakeholders in this situation are Jason and Steven. After careful consideration, Jason has decided on 3 possible solutions to the dilemma he faces. The first solution is to immediately go to his RA and confess what Steven has been leaving in their room. The second solution is to directly speak to Steven and let him know that he is uncomfortable with what Steven has been doing. The third and final solution is to simply do nothing. Doing nothing, although it may not be the best solution at times, is always an option. Now that we have completed the steps of recognition, identification, and development, we can now move on to the test portion of the STAR decision-making model. The second step of the STAR decision-making model, aptly defined as the test step, includes the use of at least 3 different tests in order to determine the best solution to act upon. There are 6 tests: the harm test, the legality test, the precedent test, the respect test, the golden rule test, and the peer or colleague test. The harm test asks, does this option do less harm than the alternatives? The legality test simply asks, is this option legal? The precedent test asks, what kind of precedent or example does this set for future instances or conflicts? The respect test asks, what would someone you respect or hold in high regard think of this solution? The golden rule test asks, would I still view this option as good if it was being applied to me? Finally, the peer or colleague test asks, what opinion do your peers hold regarding this solution? Although there are a total of 6 tests, it is common to only use 3 tests in order to determine the best course of action. The most effective method would be to use all 6 tests. However, in this situation, Jason has decided to apply the harm test, the precedent test, and the golden rule test. Now, Jason must apply each of the tests he chose to each of the 3 solutions he developed in the stop step. Beginning with the first solution of talking to his RA, Jason decides that this solution fails the harm test, as Steven is most likely to get into trouble and face punishment. Next, this solution also fails the precedent test, as this creates a precedent of Jason going behind Steven's back and Steven potentially being unable to trust Jason in the future. Finally, the first solution fails the golden rule test, as Jason would not like to be potentially punished if he was in Steven's shoes. Moving forward, Jason now looks at the second solution of directly talking to Steven. Jason decides that this course of action does pass the harm test, as Steven is unlikely to get punished. In addition, it passes the precedent test because it shows a relationship built on trust between Jason and Steven. Finally, this solution also passes the golden rule test, considering Jason would not be harmed directly if he was in Steven's position. Jason moves on to the third and final solution of doing nothing. Doing nothing passes the harm test, as no stakeholder is harmed as a result of Jason's lack of action. However, this solution does not pass the precedent test. Doing nothing sets a precedent between Jason and Steven that Jason is not willing to stand up against things that make him uncomfortable. Finally, this solution does pass the golden rule test again because Jason would not be harmed if he were in Steven's position. Looking at the chart we just created, it is clear that the second solution is Jason's best option, as it passed each of the tests he applied to it. Jason has now decided on the course of action he will take to solve this ethical dilemma. We now move on to the third step of the STAR decision-making model, act. During this step, it is important to remember that the solution you decided on was chosen with deep understanding and insight as a result of the utilization of tests. Knowing this, it is important to commit to your decision and act in complete confidence. It would be wasteful to put effort into developing and determining a solution and not put the same level of effort into executing the chosen course of action. The fourth and final step of the STAR decision-making model is reflect. This step includes the acceptance of responsibility for the solution. Just as it is necessary to act in confidence, it is also important to face the consequences of the action, good or bad, with an intent to claim them as your own. In addition, it is critical to take time to further consider the solution with hindsight. Ask these questions of yourself. What went right? What went wrong? What could I do differently in the future? Am I happy with this outcome? This action is critical to fully gathering all possible benefits from utilizing the STAR decision-making model for the present and the future. Finally, reflection on your actions may have provided possible adaptations or modifications to the chosen solution. Act on these if necessary. The STAR decision-making model proves to be extremely useful in our world today. It is common to find yourself within an ethical dilemma in a workplace, an academic setting, or your daily life. However, with the guidance that the STAR decision-making model provides, it is easier than ever before to develop solutions, commit to actions, and reflect positively in order to create a greater impact on your surrounding community.